Slunk it out there, I cut out. But like I was saying, all right, when it came to Israel asking for help, they received help. Okay, because you understand that okay, they control the media and they control everything. All right, and when it came down to all right, the ceasefire, what did they do? They went and freaking bombed the place after that, man. And this is an article showing, it's further edifying the report, and it says Israel attacks across Lebanon kill at least 100, no, 254 after U.S. Iran ceasefire. And it says Israel's army says it's carried out the largest coordinated strike against Lebanon since it renewed its war on the country. All right, and showing you, right now we are seeing who's really the aggressor. Taking place right now. Okay, and it's always going to be Esau as being the aggressor because even with this whole Iran shit, when he was doing, the bombing to Iran. Okay, how did what does America do, man? They go and they infiltrate countries, countries that whatever countries that don't have a say so into what America way of living is. What does Esau do? He goes behind the scenes and take that leader out, man. And I was watching a video showing that it's like now Trump is saying he's gonna save the Iranian people. Okay, but here it is. The devil's gonna create the problem and try to come in the picture and say that he's a solution. All right, and that's showing you how wicked Esau is, man. Okay, you're the one that created the problem, and now you're trying to hear and say, yeah, here, here's the solution. All right, but I got another article too, Slakia. I have another article too as well. Because I had to double check myself to see whether Israel was a part of that ceasefire, man. And which they say they weren't, but understand that these two nations work hand in hand. Okay, these two nations, America and Israel, work hand in hand. Trump does not have a say so on what he does. He just takes orders, man. Okay, and it says this article is here, and it says Netanyahu says U.S. Iran ceasefire does not include Lebanon. Okay, and this is recently, man. All right after that ceasefire, here goes Amalek, all right, bombing the country. Okay, if you was really for peace and really for coming to an agreement, coming to a ceasefire, why would you go ahead and do it? That should show you why it's lucky. That should show you how Esau cannot be trusted. All right, that just further proves the point of why this devil cannot be trusted because even when you go into okay, how this devil went and just created multiple treaties with the northern tribe and went and broke all of them. Okay, and then I saw another article too, going into how Trump was like, he wanted to come to a negotiation, to come to a negotiation, but behind those closed doors, he was trying to invade the place, man, and that just shows you the characteristics of Esau Edom, man. And it's funny because he just he comes so politely and saying, yeah, let's just negotiate, but in all reality, he just had a master plan behind him, man. Okay, he never wants to negotiate and never wants to really create a solution. Okay, because if you're not siding with his way of living or his way of ruling, he's gonna take you out, man. He's gonna set up somebody or kill a ruler, or a president or the leader of that country, just so that that country doesn't become successful, man. All right, and we done seen it with a lot of countries, man. Okay, how this devil operates. All right, but I had a couple of precepts lined up, low ones, less than this edifying. Okay, This is jump to Ecclesiasticus 12, verse 10. It says, "Never trust thy enemy, for like his iron rusted, so is his wickedness, man." And that's right. Never trust Esau Edom, man. So as his iron rusted, so is wickedness, and we all know iron rust, man. All right, and the Iranians knew that too, man. They they knew that America, couldn't be trusted. All right, because it is, America's not a nation for you to be trying to make, negotiations with and try to create peace because in their heart, and Esau, how he works, okay, he likes to come down, though he go down crouching, war was in his heart. There you go. Well, that was spirit. That was the next slide, Yakin. That was the next verse. It says, though he humble himself and go crouching, yet take heed and beware of him, and thou shalt be, it's like here, and thou shalt be unto him as thou hadst look wiped a looking glass. Thou shalt know that his wrath has not been altogether wiped away. That's right, man. Though he go down crouching, Esau know how to talk a good talk, man. Esau is good with the words. Scriptures reference that, this devil as being, he's wiser than Daniel. And so Esau know how to put things in words, put things in contracts, so that you may miss it, or talk a good talk so that you may be misled or persuaded to do something that you don't want to do. All right, and that's how this devil reacts, man. That's how this devil, acts towards, you know, everybody, man. All right, and and it's nothing new because as us, as men of the Lord, okay, we don't realize it, and we warn the people, man. All right, continuing on, this is Psalm 55, Psalm 55, verse 21. It says, "The words of his mouth were smooth than butter, the war was in his heart. His words were softer than oil, yet they were drawn swords." Right, man. His words were smoother than butter, but war was in his heart. All right, and who was that, man? Esau Edom. All right, they were trying to negotiate, but here it is. Trump was trying to invade while he was trying to go, quote unquote, negotiate. Okay, they done went into the ceasefire, but in reality, their ally, which is Israel, went and still bombed the place. All right, that's just the characteristics of this government. That's why the title of the lesson is he cannot be trusted. Esau Edom cannot be trusted. Okay, that's why the scripture tell us to never trust that enemy because he's wicked, man. All right, but it was a very quick lesson. I just wanted to point out that because I seen that article. All right, and I just wanted to expand on it more. Okay, through the spirit. And Lord will invest in this edifying with that. I do need to give all praise and all glory to. However, Shabbat, Shabbat, double honor to our apostles and elders of great millstone that taught us his truth and that rule well. Peace and blessing to the sincere occupants pushing his truth and all truth and sincerity or in the four corners of the earth diligently. To you I say, Shalom.